Welcome back to Civil Defiance. I'm Otto Bismarck, and let's get one thing straight. The political drama you watch on the news, the petty feuds, the tweets, the shouting matches in the Senate, it is all theater. It is a puppet show designed to keep your eyes off the hands pulling the strings. The real chains being forged around your liberty today aren't being debated on the House floor. They are being welded shut in the shadowy offices of the administrative state. The EPA, the Department of Energy, the FTC, the USDA. These acronyms are not benign public servants. They are the armed wing of the Uni-Party. Think about it. We had a presidential election. One side wins, the other loses. But what actually changes? A few faces at the top. The rules, the crushing burden of regulations, the bureaucratic machinery that controls everything from the thermostat in your home to the car you can buy to the very food on your table. That machine keeps grinding. It's a permanent government, a self-licking ice cream cone of unelected power. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Uni-Party is not an official political organization. It is the fused mass of the establishment. It's the lobbyists, the career politicians with five-figure pensions, the revolving door of corporate executives, and the unelected bureaucrats who ensure that no matter who you vote for, the fundamental direction of the country never changes. The administrative state is their fortress. Look at the recent push to completely change the rules around federal hiring. The administration is now requiring job applicants for critical, non-political positions to submit essays on the personal significance of executive orders and how they would implement the current administration's specific directives. This isn't about ensuring competence. This is an outright, blatant political loyalty test. What does that mean? It means the Uni-Party, that fused massive establishment power that demands conformity, is now ensuring that every single cog in the massive federal machine is an ideological zealot, a loyalist who will rubber stamp the agenda, regardless of which party is in the White House. This isn't just patronage, it's a structural transformation of the civil service from neutral arbiters into a standing army of partisan enforcers. It's a move that ensures the deep state, the permanent administrative class, is immune to genuine political change. The Uni-Party is making its chokehold on the nation permanent. It gets worse. Look at the chaos around the current government funding crisis. A federal appeals court orders the administration to swiftly pay full benefits for a key program, tapping into two different pots of money to support millions of Americans. And what does the administration do? They say they're complying, then immediately run to the Supreme Court to block the order. The basic needs for millions of Americans are being used as a pawn in a high-stakes political chess game over funding. This is the calculated weaponization of basic human needs. This isn't incompetence. This is leverage. The Uni-Party knows that the most effective way to control a population is not through open force, but through intricate, opaque bureaucratic systems that can be turned on and off like a faucet. They're telling the people, you will comply with our agenda, or we will shut off your ability to feed your family, to travel, or to run your business. And consider the corporate element, where the Uni-Party truly shows its bipartisan face. The administration calls for a Department of Justice investigation into foreign-owned meat packers for driving up beef prices. Now, on the surface, that sounds populist. Good for the little guy. But what is the true effect? It's a political move to deflect blame, to make a scapegoat out of a sector, while the real issue, the massive corporate consolidation and decades of deregulation under both Republican and Democrat administrations that created this monopolistic environment, goes unaddressed. This is a classic Uni-Party maneuver. Throw a bone to the populist side with a targeted, small-scale attack while protecting the core structure of corporate power that bankrolls them all. Look at the history of the EPE. It was created to protect the environment. Noble goal. But look at what it has become. It has morphed into a legislative body unto itself, issuing regulations that determine how farmers can use their land, what kind of energy producers can generate, and which vehicles you are allowed to buy. These are not just rules, they are economic mandates. And who benefits? The massive consolidated corporations that can afford the billion-dollar compliance departments to navigate the endless paperwork while crushing their smaller competitors. The Uni-Party is happy to regulate as long as those regulations create a moat around the corporate giants who fund their campaigns. The recent push by the Department of Transportation to mandate certain safety features or restrict certain types of fuel or power sources in vehicles is another perfect example. This is not just about safety. This is about national industrial policy dictated not by Congress, but by unelected officials in a back room, often after consulting heavily with the very few major manufacturers who stand to profit from the elimination of smaller market players. They create the rules that guarantee the survival of the biggest players, and those players, in turn, ensure the perpetual funding and political survival of the Uni-Party apparatus. It is a closed loop of control and cash. The legal system has created and blessed this massive transfer of power to the bureaucracy through doctrines like Chevron Deference. Now, I won't bore you with legal jargon, but here's the essence. Chevron Deference is a Supreme Court principle that says if a federal statute is ambiguous, courts should defer to the agency's reasonable interpretation of that statute. In plain English, when Congress is lazy, unclear, or intentionally vague, which they often are because the Uni-Party doesn't want to take tough votes, they pass the buck to the EPA, the FDA, the IRS, or the DOJ. And when that agency decides to use that ambiguous language to write a massive freedom-crushing new rule, the courts have historically said, well, the agency knows best. This is the key mechanism that allows the Uni-Party to govern without accountability. They write vague laws, the unelected bureaucrats write the actual, controlling regulations, and the courts refuse to stop it. Congress gets to look principled by passing a fuzzy law. The bureaucrats get absolute power, and you, the citizen, get the shaft. The good news is that this is finally being challenged. The Supreme Court is currently reevaluating the Chevron Deference doctrine. If this doctrine is struck down, it would be a major victory for civil defiance. It would force Congress to actually do its job and write clear laws, and it would put the power of interpretation back in the hands of the courts, where it belongs, not the hands of unelected political operatives. But the establishment, the Uni-Party, is fighting this tooth and nail. Why? Because without their bureaucratic arm, their control collapses. Let's bring this down to your kitchen table. The Department of Energy recently finalized new rules mandating energy efficiency standards for appliances. This isn't just about saving energy. This is about taking choice away from the consumer and dictating manufacturing standards that raise the cost of everything. You want a powerful washing machine that works quickly? Too bad. The Uni-Party has decided you need an expensive, complicated machine that saves water and energy, but triples the time you spend doing laundry. This is micromanaging your life by bureaucratic fiat. And look at the Department of Labor's recent reclassification efforts. They are constantly issuing new definitions and interpretations of who is an employee versus an independent contractor. This sounds technical, but it is deeply political. It radically alters the business models of countless independent workers, from gig workers to freelancers, often forcing them into compliance models that are simply unsustainable. Who benefits? The massive legacy corporations and unions that thrive on rigid, centralized employment structures. The small entrepreneur, the independent thinker, the person trying to carve out their own economic freedom, they are crushed under the weight of these constantly shifting, bureaucratically imposed definitions. This is the soft tyranny of the administrative state. It is death by 1,000 cuts, all administered by people you cannot vote for and cannot fire. The message of civil defiance is this: stop looking at the surface fight, look at the foundation. The foundation is the administrative state, and it is the key to the Uni-Party's control. And until we dismantle that power, we will never be free. So what is the solution? First, demand specificity from Congress. When your representatives vote on a bill, call them and demand to know what specific powers the bill delegates to unelected agencies. If they say it's up to the EPA or the FDA will figure out the specifics, then they are betraying you. They are passing the buck and expanding the Uni-Party's power. Demand that they write clear, concise laws. Second, support legal challenges to Chevron Deference. This is the most critical fight in the courts today. Follow groups and organizations that are fighting to dismantle this doctrine. The removal of this precedent will cripple the administrative state's ability to act as a shadow legislature. Third, focus on state and local resistance. The federal regulatory machine is massive, but it can be undercut at the local level. Support local politicians who pledge to refuse to enforce unconstitutional or overreaching federal mandates. When a federal agency issues a rule, the enforcement often comes down to state or local cooperation. Withdrawing that cooperation is the essence of peaceful civil defiance. Fourth, shine a light on the bureaucrats. Most of these people thrive in anonymity. They hate being named, being challenged, and being put in the spotlight. When an agency issues a rule that impacts you or your business, find out who wrote that rule, who signed off on it, and hold them personally accountable in the public square. They must be made to feel the pressure of the people they claim to serve. The fight is hard. The Uni-Party has immense resources, and they control the mechanism of power. But their greatest weakness is the glare of public scrutiny. They cannot survive transparency. We are not just fighting Republicans or Democrats. We are fighting the Uni-Party's permanent government, the administrative state that seeks to cage us in a gilded pen of regulations. It's time to push back. It's time for civil defiance.